Chapter 17 of The Secret Tomb by Maurice LEBLANC. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 17 The Secret Perishes. The scene had not lasted a minute, and in less than a minute the readjustment had taken place. Defeat was changed to victory. A precarious victory. Dorothy knew that a man like Destricher would not long remain the dupe of the illusion with which, by a stroke of really incredible daring, she had filled his mind. Nevertheless, she essayed the impossible to bring about the ruffian's capture, a capture which she could not effect alone, and which would only become definite if she kept him awed till the freeing of Webster, Errington, and Marco Dario. As authoritative as if she were disposing of an army corps, she gave her orders to her rescuers. "One of you stay there with the rifle leveled, ready to fire at the slightest movement, and let the remainder of the troop go to set the prisoners free. Hurry up now, go round the tower. They're to the left of the entrance, a little further on." The remainder of the troop was Castor and Pollux, unless St. Quentin went with them, thinking it best simply to leave his rifle, model 1870, resting in the loophole and aimed directly at the ruffian. "They are going, they are entering, they are searching," she said to herself, trying to follow the movements of the children. But she saw Destricher's tense face little by little relax. He had looked at the barrel of the rifle. He had heard the quiet steps of the children, so different from the row which a band of peasants would have made. Soon she no longer doubted that the ruffian would escape before the others came. The last of his hesitation vanished. He let his arms fall, grinding his teeth. "Sold," he said. "It's those brats, and the rifle is nothing but old iron. My God, you have a nerve! Am I to shoot?" "Come off it. A girl like you kills to defend herself, not for killing's sake. To hand me over to justice. Will that give you back the diamonds? I would rather have my tongue torn out and be roasted over a slow fire than divulge the secret. They're mine. I'll take them when I please. One step forward and I shoot. Right, you've won the party. I'm off." He listened. "The brats are gabbling over yonder. By the time they've untied them, I shall be a long way off. Au revoir. We shall meet again." "No," she said. "Yes, I shall have the last word. The diamonds first, the love affair afterwards. I did wrong to mix the two." She shook her head. "You will not have the diamonds. Would I let you go if I weren't sure? But, and I've told you so, you are lost." "Lost? And why?" he sneered. "I feel it." He was about to reply, but the sound of voices nearer came to their ears. He leapt out of the guard-room and ran for it, bending low, through the bushes. Dorothy, who had darted after him, aimed at him, with a sudden determination to bring him down. But, after a moment's hesitation, she lowered her weapon, murmuring, "No, no, I cannot. And then what good would it be? Anyhow, my father will be avenged." She went towards her friends. The boys had had great difficulty in freeing them, so tangled was the network of cords that bound them. Webster was the first to get to his feet and run to meet her. "Where is he?" "Gone," she said. "What? You had a revolver and you let him get away?" Errington came up, then Dario, both furious. "He has got away? Is it possible? But which way did he go?" Webster snatched Dorothy's weapon. "You hadn't the heart to kill him? Was that it?" "I had not," said Dorothy. "A blackguard like that! A murderer! Ah, well, that's not our way, I swear. Here we are, friends. Dorothy barred their way. And his confederates? There are 5 or 6 of them besides Destricher, all armed with rifles. All the better, said the American. There are 7 shots in the revolver. I beg you, she said, fearing the result of an unequal battle. I beg you. Besides, it's too late. They must have got on board their boat. We'll see about that. The 3 young men set out in pursuit. She would have liked to go with them, but Montfaucon clung to her skirt, sobbing, his legs still hampered by his bonds. Mummy, Mummy, don't go away. I was so frightened. She no longer thought of anything but him, took him on her knees, and consoled him. You mustn't cry, Captain dear. It's all over. That nasty man won't come back any more. Have you thanked St. Quentin, and your comrades Castor and Pollux? Where would we have been without them, my darling? She kissed the 3 boys tenderly. Yes, where would we have been? Ah, St. Quentin, the idea of the rifle. What a find! You are a splendid fellow, old chap. Come and be kissed again, and tell me how you managed to get to us. I didn't miss the little heaps of pebbles that you sowed along the path from the inn. But why did you go round the marsh? Did you hope to get to the ruins of the chateau by going along the beach at the foot of the cliffs? Yes, Mummy, replied St. Quentin, very proud at being so complimented by her, and deeply moved by her kisses. And wasn't it impossible? Yes, but I found a better way. On the sand, a little boat, which we pushed into the sea. And you had the courage, the 3 of you, and the strength to row. It must have taken you an hour. An hour and a half, Mummy. There were heaps of sandbanks which blocked our way. At last we landed not far from here in sight of the tower, and when we got here I recognized the voice of Destricher. Ah, my poor dear darlings! Again there was a deluge of kisses which she rained right and left on the cheeks of St. Quentin, Castor's forehead, and the captain's head. And she laughed, and she sang. It was so good to be alive. So good to be no longer face to face with a brute who gripped your wrists and sullied you with his abominable leer. But she suddenly broke off in the middle of these transports. And Maitre Delarue? I was forgetting him. He was lying at the back of his cell behind a rampart of tall grasses. Attend to him! Quick, St. Quentin, cut his ropes! Goodness, he has fainted! Look here, Maitre Delarue, you come to your senses. If not, I leave you. Leave me? Cried the notary, suddenly waking up. But you've no right. The enemy has run away, Maitre Delarue. He may come back. These are terrible people. Look at the hole their chief made in my hat. The donkey finished by throwing me off, just at the entrance to the ruins. I took refuge in a tree and refused to come down. I didn't stay there long. The ruffian knocked my hat off with a bullet. Are you dead? No, but I'm suffering from internal pains and bruises. That will soon pass off, Maitre Delarue. Tomorrow there won't be anything left, I assure you. St. Quentin, I put Maitre Delarue in your charge. And yours too, Montfaucon. Rub him. She hurried off with the intention of joining her 3 friends, whose badly conducted expedition worried her. Starting out at random, without any plan of attack, they ran the risk once more of letting themselves be taken one by one. Happily for them, the young men did not know the place where Destricher's boat was moored, and though the portion of the peninsula situated beyond the ruins was of no great extent, since they were at once hampered by masses of rock which formed veritable barriers, she found all 3 of them. Each of them had lost his way in the labyrinth of little paths, and each of them, without knowing it, was returning to the tower. Dorothy, who had a finer sense of orientation, did not lose her way. She had a flair for the little paths which led nowhere, and instinctively chose those which led to her goal. Moreover, she soon discovered footprints. It was the path followed regularly by the band in going to and fro between the ruins and the sea. It was no longer possible to go astray. But at this point they heard cries which came from a point straight ahead of them. Then the path turned sharply and ran to the right. A pile of rocks had necessitated this change of direction, abrupt and rugged rocks. Nevertheless, they scaled them to avoid making the apparently long detour. Dario, who was the most agile in leading, suddenly exclaimed, "I see them! They're all on the boat! But what the devil are they doing?" Webster joined him, revolver in hand. "Yes, I see them too. Let's run down. We shall be nearer to them." Before them was the extremity of the plateau, on which the rock stood, on a promontory 120 feet high, which commanded the beach. Two very high granite needles formed as it were the pillars of an open door, through which they saw the blue expanse of the ocean. "Look out! Down with you!" commanded Dorothy, dropping full length on the ground. The others flattened themselves against the rocky walls. 150 yards in front of them, on the deck of a large motor fishing boat, there was a group of 5 men, and among them a woman was gesticulating. On seeing Dorothy and her friends, one of the men turned sharply, brought his rifle to his shoulder, and fired. A splinter of granite flew from the wall near Arrington. "Halt there, or I'll shoot again," cried the man who had fired. Dorothy checked her companions. "What are you going to do? The cliff is perpendicular. You don't mean to jump into the empty air?" "No, but we can get back to the road and go round," Dario proposed. "I forbid you to stir. It would be madness." Webster lost his temper. "I've a revolver." "They have rifles, they have. Besides, you would get there too late. The drama would be over." "What drama?" "Look." Dominated by her, they remained quiet, sheltered from the bullets. Below them developed, like a performance at which they were compelled to be present without taking part in it, what Dorothy had called the drama, and all at once they grasped its tragic horror. The big boat was rocking beside a natural quay which formed the landing place of a peaceful little creek. The woman and the 5 men were bending over an inert body which appeared to be bound with bands of red wool. The woman was apostrophizing this 6th individual, shaking her fists in his face and heaping abuse on him, of which only a few words reached the ears of the young people. "Thief! Coward! You refuse, do you? You wait a minute." She gave some orders with regard to an operation, for which everything was ready, for the young people perceived, when the group of ruffians broke up, that the end of a long rope which ran over the mainyard was round the prisoner's neck. 2 men caught hold of the other end of it. The inert body was set on its feet. It stood upright for a few seconds, like a doll one is about to make dance. Then gently, without a jerk, they drew it up a yard from the deck. "Destructeur," murmured one of the young men, recognizing the Russian soldier's cap. Dorothy recalled with a shudder the prediction she had made to her enemy directly after their meeting at the Chateau de Robore. She said in a low voice, "Yes, destructeur." "What do they want from him?" "They want to get the diamonds from him." "But he hasn't got them." "No, but they may believe he has them. I suspected that that was what they had in mind. I noticed the savage expression of their faces and the glances they exchanged as they left the ruins by Destructeur's orders. They obeyed him in order to prepare the trap into which he has fallen. Below, the figure only remained suspended from the yard for an instant. They lowered the doll. Then they drew it up again twice, and the woman yelled, "Will you speak? The treasure you promised us? What have you done with it?" Beside Dorothy, Webster muttered, "It isn't possible. We can't allow them to." "What?" said Dorothy. "You wanted to kill him a little while ago. Do you want to save him now?" Webster and his friends did not quite know what they wanted, but they refused to remain inactive any longer in presence of this heartrending spectacle. The cliff was perpendicular, but there were fissures and runlets of sand in it. Webster, seeing that the man with the rifle was no longer paying any attention to them, risked the descent. Dario and Arrington followed him. The attempt was vain. The gang had no intention of fighting. The woman started the motor. When the three young men set foot on the sand of the beach, the boat was moving out to sea, with the engine going full speed. The American vainly fired the 7 shots in his revolver. He was furious, and he said to Dorothy, who got down to him, all the same, we should have acted differently. There goes a band of rogues, clearing off under our very eyes." "What can we do?" said Dorothy. "Isn't the chief culprit punished? When they're out to sea, they'll search him again, and once certain that his pockets are really empty, that he knows the secret and will not reveal it, they'll throw their chief into the sea, along with the false marquis, whose corpse is actually at the bottom of the hold." "And that's enough for you? The punishment of destriture?" "Yes." "You hate him intensely, then?" "He murdered my father," she said. The young men bowed gravely. Then Dario resumed. "But the others?" "Let them go and get hanged somewhere else. It's much better for us. The band arrested and handed over to justice would have meant an inquiry, a trial, the whole adventure spread broadcast. Was that to our interest? The Marquis de Bougival advised us to settle our affairs among ourselves." Arrington sighed. "Our affairs are all settled. The secret of the diamonds is lost." Far away, northwards, towards Brittany, the boat was moving away. That same evening, towards 9 o'clock, after having entrusted Maitre de la Rue to the care of the widow Almarex, all he thought of was getting a good night's rest and returning to his office as quickly as possible. And after having enjoined on the window absolute silence about the assault of which she had been the victim, Arrington and Dario harnessed their horses to the caravan. St. Quentin led One-Eyed Magpie behind it. They returned by the stony path up the gorge to the ruins of Roche-Periac. Dorothy and the children resumed possession of their lodging. The 3 young men installed themselves in the cells of the tower. Next morning, early, Archibald Webster mounted his motorcycle. He did not return till noon. "I've come from Sarzeau," he said. "I have seen the monks of the abbey. I have brought from them the ruins of Roche-Periac." "Heavens!" cried Dorothy. "Do you mean to end your days here?" "No, but Arrington, Dario, and I wish to search in peace, and for peace there is no place like home." "Archibald Webster, you seem to be very rich. Are you as firmly bent on finding the diamonds as all that?" "I'm bent on this business of our ancestor Bougival ending as it ought to end, and that chance shouldn't, some day or other, give those diamonds to someone, without any right to them, who happens to come along. Will you help us, Dorothy?" "Goodness, no." "Hang it, why not?" "Because as far as I am concerned, the adventure came to an end with the punishment of the culprit." They looked downcast. "Nevertheless, you're staying on?" "Yes, I need rest, and my 4 boys need it too. 12 days here, leading the family life with you, will do us a world of good. On the 24th of July, in the morning, I'm off." "The date is fixed?" "Yes." "For us too?" "Yes, I'm taking you with me." "And to where do we travel?" "An old manor in Vendée, where, at the end of July, other descendants of the Lord of Beaugreval will find themselves gathered together. I'm eager to introduce you to our cousins d'Avonay and Chagny-Robore. After that you will be at liberty to return here, to bury yourselves with the diamonds of Golconda." "Along with you, Dorothy?" "Without me." "In that case," said Webster, "I sell my runes." For the 3 young men, those few days were a continuous enchantment. During the morning they searched, without any kind of method, be it said, and with an ardor that lessened all the more quickly because Dorothy did not take part in their investigations. Really, they were only waiting for the moment when they would be with her again. They lunched together near the caravan, which Dorothy had established under the shade of the big oak which commanded the avenue of trees. A delightful meal, followed by an afternoon no less delightful, and by an evening which they would have willingly prolonged till the coming of dawn. Not a cloud in the sky spoiled the beautiful weather. Not a traveler tried to make his way into their domain or pass beyond the notice they had nailed to a branch. Private property, man-traps. They lived by themselves, with the 4 boys with whom they had become the warmest friends, and in whose games they took part, all 7 of them in an ecstasy before her whom they called the wonderful Dorothy. She charmed and dazzled them. Her presence of mind during the painful day of the 12th of July, her coolness in the chamber in the tower, her journey to the inn, her unyielding struggle against destitution, her courage, her gaiety, were so many things that awoke in them an astounded admiration. She seemed to them the most natural and the most mysterious of creatures. For all that she lavished explanations on them and told them all about her childhood, her life as nurse, her life as showman, the events at the Chateau de Robore and Hillock's Manor, they could not bring themselves to grasp the fact that she was at once the Princess of Argonne and circus manager, that she was just that, manifestly as reserved as she was fanciful, manifestly the daughter of a grand seigneur every whit as much as mountebank and rope dancer. But her delicate tenderness towards the 4 children touched them profoundly. To such a degree did the maternal instinct reveal itself in her affectionate looks and patient care. On the 4th day Marco Dario succeeded in drawing her aside and made his proposal. "I have 2 sisters who would love you like a sister. I live in an old palace in which, if you would come to it, you would wear the air of a lady of the Renaissance." On the 5th day the trembling Errington spoke to her of his mother, who would be so happy to have a daughter like you. On the 6th day it was Webster's turn. On the 7th day they nearly came to blows. On the 8th day they clamored to her to choose between them. "Why between you?" she said laughingly. "You are not the only people in my life besides my 4 boys. I have relations, cousins, or other suitors perhaps." "Choose." On the 9th day, under severe pressure, she promised to choose. "Well there," she said, "I'll set you all in a row and kiss the one who shall be my husband." "When?" "On the 1st day of the month of August." "Swear it." "I swear it." After that they stopped searching for the diamonds. As Errington observed, and Montfaucon had said it before him, the diamonds they desired were she, Dorothy. Their ancestor Beaugreval could not have foreseen for them a more magnificent treasure. On the morning of the 24th, Dorothy gave the signal for their departure. They quitted the ruins of Roche-Periac and said good-bye to the riches of the Marquis de Beaugreval. "All the same," said Dario, "you ought to have searched, Cousin Dorothy. You only are capable of discovering what no one has discovered for 2 centuries. With a careless gesture, she replied, Our excellent ancestor took care to tell us himself where the fortune was to be found, in Robore. Let us accept his decision. They travelled again the stages which she had travelled already, crossed the Vilaine, and took the road to Nantes. In the villages, one must live, and the young girl accepted help from no one. Dorothy's circus gave performances. Fresh cause for amazement on the part of the 3 foreigners. Dorothy conducting the parade, Dorothy on One-Eyed Magpie, Dorothy addressing the public. What sparkling and picturesque scenes! They slept 2 nights at Nantes, where Dorothy desired to see Maitre de la Rue. Quite recovered from his emotions, the notary welcomed her warmly, introduced her to his family, and kept her to lunch. Finally, on the last day of the month, starting early in the morning, they reached Hillock's Manor in the middle of the afternoon. Dorothy left the caravan in front of the gateway with the boys, and entered, accompanied by the 3 young men. The courtyard was empty. The farm servants must be at work in the fields, but through the open windows of the manor they heard the noise of a violent discussion. A man's voice, harsh and common. Dorothy recognized it as the voice of Voirin, the money-lender, was scolding furiously, reinforced by thumps on the table. "You've got to pay, Monsieur Rao. Here's the bill of sale, signed by your grandfather, at 5 o'clock on the 31st of July, 1921, 300,000 francs in banknotes or government securities. If not, the manor is mine. It's 450. Where's the money?" Dorothy heard next the voice of Rao, then the voice of Count Octave de Chagny offering to arrange to pay the sum. "No arrangements," said the moneylender. "Banknotes. It's 456. Archibald Webster caught Dorothy by the sleeve and murmured, "Rao, it's one of our cousins." "Yes." "And the other man?" "A moneylender." "Offer him a check." "He won't take it." "Why not?" "He wants the manor." "What of it? We're not going to let a thing like that happen." Dorothy said to him, "You're a good fellow, Archibald, and I thank you. But do you think that it's by chance that we're here on the 31st of July at 4 minutes to 5? She went towards the steps, mounted them, crossed the hall, and entered the room. 2 cries greeted her appearance on the scene. Rao started up, very pale. The Countess de Chagny ran to her. She stopped them with a gesture. In front of the table, Voirin, supported by 2 friends whom he had brought as witnesses, his papers indeed spread out before him, held his watch in his hand. 5 o'clock, he cried in a tone of victory. She corrected him. 5 o'clock by your watch, perhaps. But look at the clock. We have still 3 minutes. And what of it? Said the moneylender. Well, 3 minutes are more than we need to pay this little bill and clear you out of the house. She opened the traveling cape she was wearing, and from one of its inner pockets drew a huge yellow envelope which she tore open. Out of it came a bundle of 1,000-franc notes and a packet of securities. Count, monsieur? No, not here. It would take rather a time, and we're eager to be by ourselves. Gently, but with a continuous pressure, she pushed him towards the door, and his 2 witnesses with him. Excuse me, monsieur, but it's a family party, cousins who haven't seen one another for 200 years, and we're eager to be by ourselves. You're not angry with me, are you? And by the way, you will send the receipt to Monsieur Devonnet? Au revoir, gentlemen. There's 5 o'clock striking. Au revoir. End of chapter 17. Chapter 18 of The Secret Tomb by Maurice LEBLANC. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 18 in Robore Fortuna. When Dorothy had shut the door on the three men, she turned to find Ralph flushed and frowning, and he said, "No, no, I can't allow it. You should have consulted me first." "Don't get angry," she said gently. "I wished first of all to rid you of this fellow Voiron. That gives us time to think things out."
"I've thought them out," he snapped. "I consider that settlement null and void."
"I beg you, Raoul, a little patience. Postpone your decision till tomorrow. By tomorrow, perhaps, I shall have persuaded you." She kissed the Countess de Chagny, then beckoning to the three strangers, she introduced them. "I bring you guests, madam. Our cousin George Errington of London, our cousin Marco Dario of Genoa, our cousin Archibald Webster of Philadelphia. Knowing that you were to come here, I was determined that the family should be complete." Thereupon she introduced Raoul d'Avonay, Count Octave, and his wife. They exchanged vigorous handshakes. "Excellent," she said. "We are united as I desired, and we have thousands and thousands of things to talk about. I've seen Destituteur again, Raoul, and as I predicted, he has been hanged. Also, I met your grandfather and Juliet Assire a long way from here. But perhaps we are getting along a bit too quickly. First of all, there is a most urgent duty to fulfill with regard to our three cousins who are bitter enemies of the dry regime." She opened the cupboard and found a bottle of port and some biscuits, and as she poured out the wine, she set about relating her expedition to Roche-Periac. She told the story quickly and a trifle incoherently, omitting details and getting them in the wrong order, but for the most part giving them a comic turn which greatly amused the Count and Countess de Chagny. "Then," said the Countess when she came to the end of her story, "the diamonds are lost?" "That," she replied, "is the business of my three cousins. Ask them." During the young girl's explanations, they had all three stood rather apart, listening to Dorothy, pleasant to their hosts, but wearing an absent-minded air, as if they were absorbed in their own thoughts. And those thoughts the Countess must be thinking too, as well as the Count, for there was one matter which filled the minds of all of them and made them ill at ease, till it should be cleared up. It was Errington who took the matter up, before the Countess had asked the question, and he said to the young girl, "Cousin Dorothy, we don't understand. No, we're quite in the dark, and I think you won't think us indiscreet if we speak quite openly." "Speak away, Errington."
Well, it's this, that 300,000 francs.
"Where did they come from?" said Dorothy, ending his sentence for him. "That's what you want to know, isn't it?"
"Well, yes."
She bent towards the Englishman's ear and whispered, "All my savings, earned by the sweat of my brow."
"I beg you."
"Doesn't that explanation satisfy you? Then I'll be frank." She bent towards his other ear, and in a lower whisper still, "I stole them."
"Oh, don't joke about it, cousin."
"But goodness, George Errington, if I did not steal them, what do you suppose I did do?" He said slowly, "My friends and I are asking ourselves if you didn't find them." "Where?" "In the ruins of Periac." She clapped her hands. "Bravo! They've guessed it. You're right, George Errington of London. I found them at the foot of a tree, under a heap of dead leaves and stones. That's where the Marquis de Bougival hid his banknotes and 6%. The other two cousins stepped forward. Marco Dario, who looked very worried, said gravely, "Be serious, Cousin Dorothy, we beg you, and don't laugh at us. Are we to consider the diamonds lost or found? It's a matter of great importance to some of us. I admit that it is to me. I had given up hopes of them. But now, all at once, you let us imagine an unexpected miracle. Is there one?" She said, "But why this supposition?" "Firstly, because of this unexpected money which we might attribute to the sale of one of the diamonds. And then, I must say it, because it seems to us, taking it all round, quite impossible that you should have given up the search for that treasure. What? You, Dorothy, after months of conflicts and victories, at the moment you reach your goal, you suddenly decide to stand by with your arms folded. Not a single effort. Not one investigation. No, on your part it's incredible." She looked from one to the other mischievously. "So that, according to you, cousins, I must have performed the double miracle of finding the diamonds without searching for them." "There's nothing you couldn't do," said Webster gaily. The Countess supported them. "Nothing, Dorothy, and I see from your air that you've succeeded in this too." She did not say no. She smiled quietly. They were all round her, curious or anxious. The Countess murmured, "You have succeeded, haven't you?" "Yes," said Dorothy. She had succeeded. The insoluble problem, with which so many minds had wrestled so many times and at such length, for ages, she had solved it. "But when? At what moment?" cried George Errington. "You never left us." "Oh, it goes a long way further back than that. It goes back to my visit to the Chateau de Robore." "Eh, what? What's that you say?" cried the astounded Count de Chagny. "From the first minute I knew at any rate the nature of the hiding place in which the treasure was shut up." "But how?" "From the motto." "From the motto?" "But it's so plain that I've never understood the blindness of those who have searched for the treasure, and that I went so far as to declare the man who, when concealing a treasure, gave so much information about it, ingenious in the extreme. But he was right, was the Marquis de Bagreval. He could engrave it all over the place, on the clock of his chateau, on the wax of his seals, since to his descendants his motto meant nothing at all." "If you knew, why didn't you act at once?" said the Countess. "I knew the nature of the hiding place, but not the spot on which it stood. This information was supplied by the gold medal. 3 hours after my arrival at the ruins, I knew all about it." Marco Dario repeated several times, "In Robore Fortuna, in Robore Fortuna," and the others also pronounced the 3 words as if they were a cabalistic formula, the mere utterance of which is sufficient to produce marvelous results. "Dario," she said, "you know Latin, and you, Errington, and you, Webster?" "Well enough," said Dario, "to make out the sense of those 3 words. There's nothing tricky about them. Fortuna means the fortune." "In this case, the diamonds," said she. "That's right," said Dario, and he continued his translation. "The diamonds are in Robore." "In the firm heart," said Errington, laughing. "In vigor, in force," added Webster. "And for you 3, that's all that the word robore, the ablative of the Latin word robber, means?" "Goodness, yes," they answered. "Robur, force, firmness, energy." She shrugged her shoulders disdainfully. "Ah, well, I, who know just about as much Latin as you do, but have the very great advantage over you of being a country girl, to me, when I walk in the country and see that variety of oak which is called the rover, it nearly always occurs that the old French word rover is derived from the Latin word robber, which means force, and also means oak. And that's what led me, when on the 12th of July I passed, along with you, near the oak which stands out so prominently in the middle of the clearing, at the beginning of the avenue of oaks. That's what led me to make the connection between that tree and the hiding place, and so to translate the information which our ancestor untiringly repeated to us. I have hidden my fortune in the hollow of a Robore oak. There you are. As you perceive, it's as simple as winking." Having made her explanation with a charming gaiety, she was silent. The 3 young men gazed at her in wonder and amazement. Her charming eyes were full of her simple satisfaction at having astonished her friends by this uncommon quality, this inexplicable faculty with which she was gifted. "You are different," said Webster. "You belong to a race of sound Frenchmen who have plenty of good sense, like all the French." No, said he, incapable of formulating the thoughts which oppressed all 3 of them. No, it's something else." He bent down before her and brushed her hand with his lips. Errington and Dario also bent down in the same respectful act, while, to hide her emotion, she mechanically translated, "Fortuna, fortune, in Robore, in the oak." And she added, "In the deepest depths of the oak, in the heart of the oak, one might say, there was about 6 feet from the ground one of those ring-shaped swellings, that scar which wounds in the trunks of trees leave. And I had an intuition that that was the place in which I must search, and that there the Marquis de Beaugreville had buried the diamonds he was keeping for his second existence. There was nothing else to do but make the test. That's what I did, during the first few nights while my 3 cousins were sleeping. St. Quentin and I got to work at our exploring with our gimlets and saws and center bits, and one evening I suddenly came across something too hard to bore. I had not been mistaken. The opening was enlarged, and one by one I drew out of it 4 balls the size of a hazelnut. All I had to do was to clear off a regular matrix of dirt to bring to light 4 diamonds. Here are 3 of them. The 4th is in pawn with Maitre Delarue, who very kindly agreed, after a good deal of hesitation, and a minute expert examination by his jeweler, to lend me the necessary money till tomorrow." She gave the 3 diamonds to her 3 friends, magnificent stones, of the same size, quite extraordinary size, and cut in the old-fashioned way with opposing facets. Errington, Webster, and Dario found it disturbing merely to look at them and handle them. 2 centuries before, the Marquis de Beaugreville, that strange visionary, dead of his splendid dream of a resurrection, had entrusted them to the very tree under which doubtless he used to go and lie and read. For 200 years nature had continued her slow and uninterrupted work of building walls, ever and ever thicker walls, round the little prison chosen with such a subtle intelligence. For 200 years, generation after generation had passed near this fabulous treasure, searching for it perhaps by reason of a confused legend, and now the great-great-great-great-granddaughter of the good man, having discovered the undiscoverable secret, and penetrated to the most mysterious and obscure of caskets, offered them the precious stones which their ancestor had brought back from the Indies. "Keep them," she said. 3 families sprung from the 3 sons of the Marquis have lived outside France. The French descendants of the 4th son will share the 4th diamond." "What do you mean?" asked Count Octave in a tone of surprise. "I say that we are 3 French heirs, you, Raoul, and I, that each diamond, according to the jeweler's valuation, is worth several millions, and that our rights, the rights of all 3 of us, are equal." My right is null, said Count Octave. Why? She said. We are partners. A compact, a promise to share the treasure made you a partner with my father and Raoul's father. A lapsed compact, cried Raoul d'Auverney in his turn. For my part, I accept nothing. The will leaves no room for discussion. 4 medals, 4 diamonds. Your 3 cousins and you, Dorothy. You only have the right to inherit the riches of the Marquis. She protested warmly. And you too, Raoul. You too. We fought together. Your grandfather was a direct descendant of the Marquis. He possessed the token of the medal. That medal was of no value. How do you know? You've never had it in your hands. I have. Impossible. There was nothing in the disc I fished up under your eyes. It was simply a bait to catch Destricher. Then, when my grandfather came back from his journey to Roche-Périac, where you met him with Julietta Sire, one day I found him weeping in the orchard. He was looking at a gold medal, which he let me take from him and look at. On it were all the indications you have described, but the 2 faces were cancelled by a cross, which manifestly, as I told you, deprived it of all value. Dorothy appeared greatly surprised by this revelation, and she replied in an absent-minded tone, "Oh, really? You saw?" She went to one of the windows and stood there for some minutes, her forehead resting against a pane. The last veils which obscured the adventure were withdrawn. Really, there had been 2 gold medals. One, which was invalid and belonged to Jean d'Argonne, had been stolen by Destricher, recovered by Raoul's father, and sent to the old baron. The other, the valid one, was the one which belonged to the old baron, who, out of prudence or greed, had never spoken of it to his son or grandson. In his madness, and dispossessed in his turn of the token, which he had hidden in his dog's collar, he had gone to win the treasure with the other medal, which he had entrusted to Julietta Sire, and which Destricher had been unable to find. All at once Dorothy saw all the consequences which followed this revelation. In taking from the dog's collar the medal which she believed to be hers, she had robbed Raoul of his inheritance. In returning to the manor and offering alms to the son of the man who had been an accomplice in her father's murder, she had imagined that she was performing an act of generosity and forgiveness, whereas she was merely restoring a small portion of that of which she had robbed him. She restrained herself and said nothing. She must act cautiously in order that Raoul might never suspect his father's crime. When she came from the window to the middle of the room, you would have said that her eyes were full of tears. Nevertheless, she was smiling, and she said in a careless tone, "Serious business tomorrow. Today let us rejoice at being reunited and celebrate that reunion. Will you invite me to dinner, Raoul? And my children, too?" She had recovered all her gaiety. She ran to the big gateway of the orchard and called the boys, who came joyfully. The captain threw himself into the arms of the Countess de Chagny. St. Quentin kissed her hand. They observed that Castor and Pollux had swollen noses, signs of a recent conflict. The dinner was washed down with sparkling cider and champagne. All the evening Dorothy was light-hearted and affectionate to them all. They felt that she was happy to be alive. Archibald Webster recalled her promise to her. It was the next day, the 1st of August, that she was to choose among her suitors. "I stick to my promise," she said. "You will choose among those who are here, for I suppose that Cousin Raoul is not the last to come forward as a candidate." "Among those who are here, and as there can be only one chosen, I insist on kissing you all tonight." She kissed the 4 young men, then the Count and Countess, then the 4 boys. The party did not break up till midnight. Next morning, Raoul, Octave de Chagny, his wife, and the 3 strangers were at breakfast in the dining room when a farm servant brought a letter. Raoul looked at the handwriting and murmured gloomily, "A letter from her, like the last time. She has gone." He remembered, as did the Count and Countess, her departure from Robore. He tore open the letter and read aloud. "Raoul, my friend, I earnestly beg you to believe blindly what I am going to tell you. It was revealed to me by certain facts which I learnt only yesterday. What I am writing is not a supposition, but an absolute certainty. I know it as surely as I know that light exists, and though I have very sound reasons for not divulging the proofs of it, I nevertheless wish you to act and think with the same conviction and serenity as I do myself. By my eternal salvation, this is the truth. Arrington, Webster, Dario, and you, Raoul, are the veritable heirs of the Marquis de Bougival, specified in his will. Therefore the 4th diamond is yours. Webster will be delighted to go to Nantes tomorrow to give Maitre de la Rue a check for 300,000 francs and bring you back the diamond. I am sending to Maitre de la Rue at the same time as the receipt which he signed the necessary instructions. I will confess, Raoul, that I felt a little disappointed yesterday when I discerned the truth. Not much, just a few tears. Today I am quite contented. I had no great liking for that fortune. Too many crimes and too many horrors went with it. Some things I should never have been able to forget. And then money is a prison, and I could not bear to live locked up. Raoul, and you, my 3 new friends, you asked me, rather by way of a joke, wasn't it, to choose a sweetheart among those who found themselves at the manor yesterday. May I answer you in rather the same manner, that my choice is made, that it is only possible for me to devote myself to the youngest of my 4 boys first, then to the others? Don't be angry with me, my friends. My heart, up to now, is only the heart of a mother, and it only thrills with tenderness, anxiety, and love for them. What would they do if I were to leave them? What would become of my poor Montfaucon? They need me and the really healthy life we lead together. Like them, I am a nomad, a vagabond. There is no dwelling place as good as our caravan. Let me go back to the high road. And then, after a time, we will meet again, shall we? Our cousins the de Chagny will welcome us at Robore. Come, let us fix a date. Christmas and New Year's Day there. Does that please you? Goodbye, my friend. My best love to you all, and a few tears. In Robore Fortuna. Fortune is in the firm heart. I kiss you all. Dorothy. A long silence followed the reading of this letter. At the end of it, Count Octave said, "Strange creature. When one considers that she had the 4 diamonds in her pocket, that is to say 10 or 12 million francs, and that it would have been so easy for her to say nothing and keep them." But the young men did not take up this train of thought. For them Dorothy was the very spirit of happiness, and happiness was going away. Raoul looked at his watch and beckoned to them to come with him. He led them to the highest point of the hillocks. On the horizon, on a white road which ran upwards among the meadows, the caravan was moving. 3 boys walked beside One-Eyed Magpie. St. Quentin was leading him. Behind, all alone, Dorothy, Princess of Argon and rope dancer. End of chapter 18. End of The Secret Tomb by Maurice LEBLANC.